All right, just to confirm for the listeners who I got on the phone here, it is the one and only Atwell. Is it you, sir?
Hey, what's up? What's up, Aaron? How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, and I just want to let people know that you and I met years ago when you were under a different name. At the time, you were going by the name Absent Minded. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And we have a new name. Why?
Oh man, the name isn't necessarily new. Atwell is my last name, so it's been around much longer than the name Absent-Minded was birthed. But at the same time, I went through, well, I guess you could call it a rebranding, maybe 5 years ago, when maturity kicked in, my sound was changing. I decided, hey, maybe it's time to my game in terms of recognizable names or whatnot. And finally, I just decided I'm going to go with my last name, Atwell, and I rolled with it, and it's stuck since. So.
I like the brand. I like the name, and I wish you the best of luck with it. I want to do some personal questions, get to know you as an individual before we dive into some more artistic ones, if that's okay.
Absolutely, man.
All right, awesome. What was the last song you listened to before you and I began speaking?
Like today?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's 10 a.m. by Gucci Man and Metro Boomin.
See, and this just shows that I am so out of touch. I don't know what that is or who they are, but I'm sure they're awesome. And I'll have to do some Googling when I get off the phone. Let me ask you this. What was the first concert you ever attended? Do you remember?
Absolutely, absolutely. I went and saw Meatloaf with my mom.
What? That's awesome. Where did you see him?
Yeah. I saw him in Gatineau, Quebec, at the arena there. It was like 1993,
Awesome.
and my mom and my aunt wanted to go see Meatloaf. I was a huge fan as a kid, and mom bought me a ticket, and I tagged along. It was totally awesome, man. Bat out of hell.
Bad out of hell. And if I could say, I was a huge Meatloaf fan as well growing up. And I didn't have the pleasure of seeing him though until I got much older. It was around 2010, I think, and we went out to Oshawa and we saw him. And I remember I was standing on the chair because it was in like the Oshawa arena where you had seats, and I was literally standing on the chair singing along. And the lady behind me tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Could you please sit down?" And I was like, "No, fuck off!" Like, I'm fucking singing a Meatloaf, baby. But you know, his daughter actually tours with him, eh? She's one of his singers.
Yeah, you know what? I'm a little out of touch with Meatloaf now, but my mom had mentioned that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, man, she's beautiful. And you know what? It's okay to be out of touch. I've heard his last two albums, I think, and they're not what Bat of the Hell 1 and 2 were. So, you want to hear him play his classics. You're not there to listen to the new stuff. You can leave at the halfway point, is what I'm saying. Um,
I think
okay, let me ask you this. What's that?
One
Sorry?
of the coolest things. One of the coolest things about Meatloaf, though, is that he overcame like throat cancer, man.
Well, he
Like
over.
this guy had, yeah. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he had throat cancer, and he had to undergo some serious like treatments and surgeries, and he overcame that and managed to keep his voice, man. It's
Yeah,
totally
good for him.
amazing.
He's gone through a lot, and especially, I forget the producer, I'm drawing a blank, but the guy who wrote basically all of his music, they notoriously went through a horrible breakup, and he was almost lost the rights to play his music. So yeah, no, I watched a documentary on Meatloaf, and the guy's had an interesting life. Um,
Crazy.
okay, let me ask you this: what was the first album you ever purchased with your own money?
First album I ever purchased with my own money was Fresh Prince and DJ Jazzy Jeff Home Base.
What year was that?
And that would have been, man, 92 or 93. And that was the album with Summertime on it.
Of course.
Summertime, summertime. That was such a good jam back in the day. And obviously, in those days, Fresh Prince was all over TV. It was super inspirational to a young teenager like myself. And you know, everybody wanted to be Will Smith, man.
And you know what? I put him up there as one of the most influential rappers that doesn't get mentioned. You know, when you ask people, they're always mentioned like Pac, Biggie, Big L. You never mention Will Smith, and to me, he is one of the most influential rappers. Interesting side note, which I learned recently, was do you know who the first person to sign Jazzy Jeff and Will Smith was, like for a major record deal?
I don't know.
Paul Oakenfold.
Huh.
Right? Of all people. That's who it was. And I learned that as a weird, I think, YouTube video I was watching. But anyways, let's move into some questions about you as an artist. I have a picture of you up in front of all your equipment, and I'm curious as to what do you use to produce or make the music you're making?
Okay. Well, I've become an avid Ableton user. So Ableton Live has become like my go-to DAW production kind of suite. Been using that now for about 7 years, I want to say, 7-8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I was strictly MPC, you know, sample and a drum machine type driven. But discovered Ableton, never looked back. So that's kind of my go-to. Within that, I run various VST instruments. You know, I've got the Tone 2 instruments. I've got a lot of native instruments, massive, contact, and all that stuff. I'm a big Splice user. I don't know if you've ever heard of Splice. But Splice is essentially rewritten kind of the rules around sampling and has brought sampling to the forefront of production legally using their platform. And I freaking love it. There's so much stuff that you can dig up and splice and chop up and mash up and tweak and add elements into your songs. But yeah, that's those. I guess those kind of all those things combined are what I'm using these days.
Well, would you say, like you mentioned that you used more MPC up until about 7 years ago. Would you say that you have gone much more digital than analog over the years?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm very much in the box now. You know, I used to really, really love the MPC. You know, I went through multiple generations of that machine. And, you know, the 2000 XL, the 2500, the 5000. And there was something really organic about hitting the pads and using the swing on it and sampling directly into it, all those good things. And I think where it really turned for me was I recognized that the digital kind of tools that were out there were becoming superior to the analog gear, in my opinion. And I gave them a try, and I wanted to move away from sampling. You know, I'd done a lot of records under Absent Minded, and pretty much the entire catalog that I put out, the multiple albums, they all contained sampled material that I didn't necessarily own the rights to, I guess is the best way to put it. But it's very common in hip hop, right? And I wanted to focus more on the composition side, focus more on sample-free material, and the digital kind of world allowed me to do that a little bit more efficiently with the use of MIDI and all of the different instruments that you can use with an Ableton. So that's kind of where the change came from.
Yeah, I like that. One thing I think of as you were speaking is, yes, hip-hop does borrow a lot from its ancestors, I guess. And, you know, resampling a lot of classics to borrow from a new audience. And you hear funny things, like new people who don't know who Paul McCartney is. You know what I mean? Like, they think that this is some new guy that's just doing a song with Kanye West.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when really he's doing it to, I guess, pay homage, and he's gotten honored to have Paul McCartney there. I remember that was like a meme going around when they did a show together, and people were saying, like, who's this Paul McCartney guy? Kanye West's going to make him huge.
Yeah, really. That's interesting.
But it's true to the new generation. They don't know, but they hear these catchy songs, and they're like, oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, Yeah, I truly believe that people don't listen to music the same way that they used to. We'll go back to our conversation about Meatloaf. The amount of times as a kid that I popped in that CD, I even had the vinyl, my mom had the vinyl, and listened to it from start to finish over and over again. Because that was like, I wanted to know everything about that album. And now, people are listening to 20, 30 seconds of a song, feeling the rhythm, not necessarily learning all the words, unless it's really catchy, like this little Nas X Old Town Road song, for example. All the kids learn that one because it's fun. But, people don't listen to music the same way. And they don't, I don't think people, especially the younger generation, appreciate music the same way that we may have used to, and particularly in the time of the Beatles and such like that, before our time, where, that was the ultimate music in those days. And there wasn't access to thousands of songs a day. There was access to that one single that was going to come out on that one radio station, or on that live television show appearance that everybody was glued to the radio and the TV to watch for the first time. There was a mania thing. So things have changed.
Yeah, no, there's definitely validity in the saturation and the availability that's out there. As you're speaking, I couldn't help but think that I don't think children have changed, though. Like when you look at babies, like a buddy of mine's got his kid at the dog park all the time, Connor, and Connor loves The Wheels on the Bus. Like he wants to hear that song over and over and over again. I think it happens, I guess, when they are able to hit the computers and start digging for their own music. And then it is this, I guess, abundancy that creates this. I don't know how to describe it other than the way you did. You're right. I used to listen to Bat Out of Hell so much that I wore the tape out, and you used to just play it until it ended. You'd flip it over, play it again until it ended, flip it over, and you just kept going. And like you say, then you'd grab the vinyl and you'd sit there with the record, playing it and reading the record cover, reading the record sleeve, taking in all the artwork. Music was so much more of an experience at that time than it is today. Now it's just something that you passively allow into your life. You don't really devote yourself to like people used to. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense, but you're right. I think children, they still look at it as an experience, and there's got to be some weird cutoff date or something that changes that, at a certain point. What that is exactly, who knows? The cool factor or something.
Well, one thing I will say that I read a book about child psychology, and one of the things the guy was questioning was, why is it that adults get bored watching a movie more than once, whereas a kid can watch a movie like 5 or 6 times yet still be entertained? And what he concluded by doing all these different experiments, which I won't get into, is that children can only recognize a single character for an object at once, whereas adults recognize all characters. So for instance, an apple is round, it's a fruit, it's red, it's juicy, it's got a taste, so there's so many different things that an apple is, and we see that when we see an apple, whereas a kid, the first time only sees that it's red, then they realize it's round, then they realize it's a fruit. So they're learning every time they're getting introduced to the apple. So with that in mind, you could say the same thing goes with music. Do you get what I'm saying? It's almost like a redundancy. Oh, I've heard this before. Oh, I know what this is. Whereas a child is eating it up because it's all new,
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. Maybe I'm just a big kid, though, because I still listen to music the same way I used to. When a new album comes out, I always want to hear the entire thing from start to finish, and I'll blast that record over and over and over until I feel like I've taken it all in and it all makes sense to me and I've figured it out and analyzed it,
Well, that's why you are who you are, Mr. Atwell.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let me ask you this. What do you got going on right now? Like, if I was to look up Mr. Atwell in 5 months, maybe by the end of the year, will I be able to hear anything new?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as a kind of spin-off of the record that I released in June called Above the Clouds, you can check that out on any streaming platform, by the way, Atwell, Above the Clouds. I worked with 9 artists on my album, 9 rap artists from around the world, and I'm actually working on singles with each one of those artists right now that I'll be dropping, over the next 5-6 months. The next one that's dropping is actually August 16th, so not this Friday, the following Friday, and that's a song called My Direction that I produced for Aston Clark. So that one's dropping. I've got a song coming out next month in September with Devo that I produced as well. It also features Rufus, and that one's called So Much More to Give, another track that I produced. So a whole bunch of songs in the works, and over the next, even up to the next year, pretty much monthly, you're going to hear songs from various artists being released. That I'm the producer, man. I produced the entire song. I helped them write it. I recorded it. I engineered it. I mastered it, and helped them distribute it. So
good for you, man. I gotta ask you this: with Drake kind of putting Canada on the map on a hip hop level, what is your opinion of that? Like, do you like the representation that Drake gives Canada, or do you wish we were looked at more as like a cardinal official country? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it, honestly. The Drake brand, the OVO brand, is probably the strongest brand in the music game right now. There's something to be said about that. And the fact that he bigs up Toronto at the level that he does has opened a lot of doors for people internationally. A lot of doors. I mean, you've got artists from Toronto right now that, particularly in the rap game, and beyond that, but particularly in the rap game, because I'm so close to it, that are getting opportunities to sign record label deals, to tour internationally, to build fan bases, make money. I'm thinking of Killy. I don't know if you ever heard of Killy. You got to look out for Killy. The kid's blowing up. I met him at the Junos this year. There's actually a pic of him and I on my Instagram. He's a young guy, and he's going to be signing a big label deal here with a U.S. label. Thinking of Tory Lanez. Tory Lanez, I believe Drake paved the way for guys like that. Tory Lanez is now huge, and he's very melodic. He's got his own sound, his own brand as well, and he's recognized as a Toronto artist. Obviously, you may not know these guys, but I'm thinking of guys like 88 Clam. 88 Clam are playing tons of huge festivals around the world. These are guys from Toronto. You've got guys like Lil Barrett. Lil Barrett's from Parkdale, man. And he's blowing up right now all across the United States, and people recognize his sound. So I actually think that it's a good thing. I think Drake has done a great job representing us and himself. It shows in his numbers. It shows in his wealth. It shows in the team he has around him. And, I don't have anything bad to say about the guy. So.
That was a great answer. Personally, I don't have much of an opinion because I'm not educated on the guy. I have to say I do respect who he is as an individual for all the things that you mentioned. The only thing I would say is I'm not a fan of his music. So that's not to say he doesn't make good music. It just means that I don't like it. But all the other people you mentioned, buddy, I don't know. You're right. And if he is, helping spawn, I guess, a whole generation of rappers from our area to get a world recognition, then big ups once again. More reasons to respect the guy. But whenever people ask me my opinion, all I can say is his clothing line, his brand, what he's done with the Raptors, and his monetary success. But I never thought about the fact that he really has held on to Toronto. He didn't have to do that.
No, he didn't. And a lot of people didn't do that in the past.
Can you think of any? I was trying to think of that as you were speaking. Can you think of any artist that's made it big that doesn't represent, that they're Canadian at least? Like, I find, as a Jewish person, I always say it's the two things we'll always claim is that, hey, he's Canadian, or hey, he's Jewish. But
man, I'll tell you, if you asked, I got a lot of friends in the U.S. Okay, and I have this one buddy, Todd Lubas, and he's from Philly. And him and I are great friends. We have different political views, but we're really tight. And one of the games that I like to play with him is, did you know this guy was Canadian? And, you know, the amount of people, if I asked Todd Lubas, did you know Drake was Canadian? He'd be like, absolutely, man. He's up in Toronto. But I played the game, I bet you didn't know Alanis Morissette was Canadian. And he's like, yeah, right. She's not Canadian, right? Because Alanis Morissette blew up in the U.S. You know, I played the whole, bet you didn't know Jim Carrey was Canadian. Well, Jim Carrey can arguably be, you know, be a singer. He's done a lot of skits where he sang, but I don't believe Jim Carrey played the I'm Canadian card very strongly. You know, after doing In Living Color and the other shows that he did. You know, a lot of people may not recognize multiple artists as being Canadian. And I think Drake did a stellar job at flexing that Toronto muscle. So.
Great answer, buddy. I like it. Okay, let me ask you this. This is something I'll switch over to the hip-hop world for you. If we were to create a Mount Rushmore that encompassed hip-hop, which 4 faces would you put up on the Mount Rushmore?
Wow. Yeah, I would put Dr. Dre's face up there. How many faces do I get? How many
4.
are on Mount Rushmore? 4?
Yeah.
So I put Dr. Dre. I would put Be Real from Cypress Hill. I would put the RZA from Wu-Tang Clan. And man, I gotta put it. It's all old school because like when you think about Mount Rushmore, it's old guys, not new guys. They don't put a new face up on Rushmore in how long? So so Dre, Be Real, the RZA, and Prodigy from Mobb Deep.
R.I.P. Let me ask you this: is there a difference between hip hop and rap music?
Oh man, you're getting deep on me. You know, if you go back to the Church of Hip Hop and KRS-One's view on that question, hip hop is something you do. Rap is something you do. Hip hop is something you live. That's the way he would put it. To me, they're one and the same. I mean, rap music, hip hop music, they're one and the same. They're just, you know, it's the whole argument. Jungle, drum and bass, you know, are they the same, right? Are they different? So to me, they're the one and the same. But I'm sure you'll find somebody with varied opinions on that stuff.
Well, yeah, and even as you were speaking, I think of when people ask me the difference between a rapper and an MC, as an MC myself, and I try and just lay it out to Biggie Smalls was an MC, Tupac was a rapper. It's more complicated, but just simply say that. And that's where I could see the difference between what hip-hop is versus rap in my own head, whereas I would think of the MC host guy being more of a hip-hop artist, whereas the rapper is rap music, more storytelling than spelling their names and hyping the crowd, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you there.
It's my own understanding. And one thing I will say about drum and bass and jungle, which I've learned from doing my other podcast, the mission statement when I started it was, what is the difference between jungle and drum and bass, or why do we have 2 names for the same style of music? And what I learned was that around 95, 96-ish, there was a cultural indifference occurring where promoters were trying to wash out certain people from the crowd, and they thought that by changing the name of the music that they could get rid of some of the ruffians, and they started telling people to stop throwing jungle parties because they won't allow us in the venue, and throw drum and bass parties so that we can at least have a place to play, and we'll try and weed out those bad folks, if you will. So there was an actual reason or method to the madness that was occurring, whereas with hip-hop and rap, I don't know where it came from, why we have 2 names for the same music.
Yeah, you know, hip-hop music, you know, you have the multiple elements of hip-hop, rap music, trap music, you know, mumble rap, all these different things. they can all be considered the same, but again, a lot of guys would say, oh, they don't like the new style of rap music. It shouldn't even be considered rap music.
Well, what's your opinion? Hold on, let me sidebar on that one then. What's your opinion on mumble rap?
You know what? A lot of my homies are gonna hate me for this. I appreciate it. I understand what these kids are trying to do. I do. I get it. Right? There's like, I read an article recently that said that the average person stops listening to new music or can't appreciate new music at about the age of 30. There's like this biological thing that occurs where you've got this whole nostalgic piece of the brain, you've got this whole hardwired piece of the brain that, you've got this era of music that you like, and it's hard at a certain point in your life to go beyond that. You just kind of end up in that, I don't want to call it a box, but that's who you are, right? I think for me, I don't necessarily have that. I've always appreciated new music. I've always been interested in analyzing and hearing new types of music all the time, and I'm into it. In fact, I play new music now way more than I play the classics, right? Where my wife is the opposite. She's all about all the classics, and she's like, why do you listen to that crap, right? But it's because I get it. I love how guys like Lil Uzi Vert have developed like a sonic brand for themselves. I'm going to use that word brand again. By doing this mumble style rap, it may not sound clear to most people, and most of the people who hate on mumble rap, they just don't get it. They don't appreciate it. I got a homie Z, MCZ. I know you know him. I record all this shit. He just wrote a song called "Mumble Rappers Suck," and I just was laughing about it. But he doesn't appreciate it. Whereas for me, I get I like it when there's good melodies. I like it when the content is playful. It's got a vibe. It rolls well with the beat. That to me, whether it's mumble rap or classic hip hop, those elements are there. Now, oftentimes when it comes to mumble rap, the content is missing. There's a lack of content. There's a lack of a story or of a message, but that's common in all music today, right? Music has been dumbed down a lot over the last couple of decades, and they did that on purpose. The labels are doing that on purpose because they're trying to make it easier for people to sing along, for people to hum along, and just kind of quickly grasp the easy concept of this song. But it works, and it gets people's attention. So, make a long story short, I don't hate it. I can appreciate mumble rap when it's the right vibe, the right sound.
Well, one thing I will say in defense of, words not always being complete or music not needing to always have a message is scatting was a big thing. I listen to jungle MCs do a bit of bop stuff, but what I would say is that when I listen to it or even try to emulate, it's hard. When I hear somebody say, I got a Glock in my Ari, and I'm like, what the fuck did he just say? And they're like, oh, he's got a gun in his Ferrari. And I'm like, well, then say that, goddammit. Enunciate. Use your words, people. It's lazy to me, and it lacks talent. Now, if I saw one of the worst performances I've ever seen on Saturday Night Live was when they had the mumble rapper guys. I forget their names, but it was horrible. And I always will give new music a chance. Like the thing you're saying about 30 years. I think I've listened to enough, I guess, growing up that I have an open mind. Recently, two people that I went and bought their CDs at Indigo were Sia, the singer, and Bastille, the poppy rock band. And I'm not into either of those types of music, but when I heard them, I liked it. I bought their music. There's something about mumble rap that I find is just disrespectful. And even when I hear some of the people, the I guess, artists today not pay respect to their roots, it's a piss off. And I guess that's where when I say I don't like Drake, at least he's not doing fucking mumble rap. But
So if you want to hear a good song that
please.
I consider to be mumble rap, and don't get me wrong, like I don't go around looking for mumble rap. There's some terrible rappers out there that are mumble rappers that are doing big things that I just don't get. One of them happens to be a Torontonian. His name is Nav. Okay, Nav is signed to XO, which is the Weeknd's label, and the guy is blowing up around the world, and I just find him to be tasteless. He's very nasal. Again, he's a little too dumbed down for my own liking. However, a lot of people would say that Lil Uzi Vert is a mumble rapper, and he's got this song called XO Tour Life that came out on his album. I want to call it Love is Rage or something like that, last year or the year before. And the way that he sings, or that the content of that song in a mumble rapper way is super good. Like it comes off really, really cool. So, there's a time and a place and different types of talent, obviously, and different approaches. But I mean, there was a lot of, you think about a lot of the, I think about a lot of the punk bands that my friends used to listen to back in the '90s. No Effects and all those kinds of bands, and a lot of that stuff. I didn't like that. I didn't like that kind of music. So I can see how people might not like certain kinds of music.
Well, but hold on one sec, Chris. There's one thing. There's a difference between, because I don't like hard punk either. But I can listen to it and understand why people do. It's just not my cup. But when I watch it and once again listen, I can see the talent that's being displayed. There's a difference between that and someone who I don't think is talented. And that's where,
right.
It's lazy, like I say. Like, you did not even write a bar. You just made some noises. Like, so that's where I'm like, and they're like, well, you just don't get it. I'm like, yeah, I do. I fucking get it. It's lazy and it's all very overproduced. And also, they're selling a lot of imagery. Like, when I think of that Takesha 6ix9ine guy.
That guy, yeah, he doesn't do it for me.
Well, but the fact that he got to the level of fame that he did is based on what I'm talking about and what sells as an artist today. I think of people in Canada like Classified. I think of the Sweatshop Union. I think of even Danio. Why aren't these guys getting play where these other guys you're mentioning are? And that's where I get frustrated, where these mumble rappers are getting signed to the Weeknd's label, whereas talented lyricists and artists of our country aren't even being seen or heard.
Well, I think, Classified's still doing big things, man. He released another album this year. He just came off a big tour. He toured this year with Maestro Fresh West and Chaclair all across the country. I kind of watched what they were doing because a homie of mine, Lee Solo, was their roadie videographer, and he documented the whole trip, and on a daily basis would post updates on social media of what their day was like and how the show went and what life was like on the bus. And Classified has a true Canadian, I want to call it cult following. Like he's big in Canada, but Classified was never successful in the United States because that's not his target market. Whereas these mumble rappers who, are making it big in the U.S. that are from Canada are targeting a completely different demographic. They're targeting those teenage kids that sip on lean, that are dumbed out, that...
That's honestly, Chris, that's all I was thinking, is they're targeting a dumber audience, is what you're saying. And
exactly,
to me, I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg here, though, because I like to think that some of our intellect that we grew up with was part of the music we listened to. And if you're playing stupid music for the children, you're just making them dumber. Like, why not push good music with articulate lyrics that make these people think?
100%, and that's kind of what my approach is. When I'm producing music, is there's got to be lyrical content. There's got to be songwriting. There's got to be melodies. It's all got to work together. And I think you'll hear that in my last two records. One I released where it was more of it's called Melancholy of Los Angeles. I dropped that in 2016. and it's a hip-hop rock hybrid. I took this approach where I was like, I really want to step up my songwriting game. I want to be articulate. I want to tell a story. I want to escape that electronic vibe and go more organic with instruments like guitars and bass and drums, and put together, an EP that, for that exact reason, was, I want to just step out of my comfort zone for a bit and be extremely musical and as articulate as I can. And I got it out of my system. And then now I took that experience, and the latest album I dropped, which again is called Above the Clouds, I did all the production. I helped with some of the songwriting, but I pretty much guided every MC that is featured on that album that I made to be articulate, to have content, to create some catchy melodies. And in my opinion, it worked out really cool, man. So, the best thing that you can do as an artist, I guess, is if you want people to hear something, you want to create things to your vision, well, that's in your full control, right? And then you can influence people with that.
Yeah, I totally get you. All right, I'm going to finish things off with a fun question here. We talked a lot about Canada, so I think this is a good way to do it. If we could create a vault that would encapsulate Canada, so in 50,000 years they're going to dig up this vault and we want to know what Canada once was, what 5 items would you put in that vault?
A moose rack.
Okay.
A Rascals album.
All right.
Some old Cyrus flyers.
Wow, you're mixing it up.
Yeah. A shot of the Toronto skyline in 1980 compared to the skyline today.
Sure.
Well, how many did I give you there? 4?
That's 4, yeah. One more thing.
Yeah. And then 5, a snapshot of Hip Hop Canada, today's date, like a screenshot, hiphopcanada.com.
Wicked. That's wicked. And you know what? I like that you stayed away from all the cliche like bacon and syrup and flannel shirts and dude about it hats and shit like that. But
I did say a moose rack though.
Yeah, that was all right. It was a way to start.
I'm an avid moose hunter. So.
Oh, are you? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I want to talk to you for a little bit, but so I'm going to sign off to the listeners. So stay on the phone with me, okay?
Okay, man.
All right. That was him, Chris Atwell. Goes by Atwell. Like I say, there's always going to be links down below. So if you want to check this man out, click down below. I hope you enjoy listening as much as I enjoy talking. And until next time, peace out.